Hi everyone, this is the part 2 to drawing a front view face, where I'm going to take the face that you've now drawn as your kind of your guideline for where features will be, and now I'm going to take that same head and draw some hair over it. So you want to get some reference probably to take a look at different hairstyles to see what they look like, and I'm just going to do something to start out with, very simple. Part on the side or in the middle. Remember that her head is round, so that line that you put in for the part is going to be on an angle, not a straight line. Okay, and then the hair is going to come up above her head shape a little bit. So I'm going to do something right now a little bit simple. We're going to have I'm going to give her bangs that are pretty full, and the edge of those bangs is going to be curved again. Okay, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to cover her ears. We're not going to draw her ears in, and we'll give her a very short kind of bob shape with a rounded bottom, something simple. So when you draw hair in, what you want to think about is getting this shape of it, not to think about individual hairs and get too much detail in there. Try to really simplify that. You can always go in afterwards and put in more detail, but the main thing that you want to do is to simplify the hair shape and put that in first of all. And that's what you're going to put in your rough sketch, which is in pencil on tracing paper. So I'm going to just quickly use the sketch that I've done underneath to draw in the features on the face. And that's going to be my first face that I use, and now I'm going to do another one. We'll do a different hairstyle. Here she'll probably have, maybe her hair is going to be pulled back, so she has a big ponytail, let's say, on the top of her head here that's coming down. Again, thinking about the shape, simplifying the whole thing, comes up, even though it's pulled back pretty tightly above her head shape a little bit. This is one of the few poses that you will have where you're really going to draw individual or think about some individual hair. Hairlines on anyone, no matter what kind of hair they have, are always very uneven. So you don't want to draw a straight line in there, or a curved line, I should say, defining the edge of the hair or the beginning of the hairline, because that is really going to be something that changes quite a bit with the individual hairs going back. So it's going to look really like it's kind of painted on her head if you draw in this, curve line like this that just goes around. Okay, so again, I'm using the same facial features, and when I put the color in, I can change that up somewhat, but I want to get that a little more, just get that kind of down on the page, and then I can make some differences going from one face to the other, different ethnicities, different makeup looks, that kind of thing. So let me just define kind of the bottom of the hair there. Maybe we'll do that as our second one. And maybe I'll do a third one here. I'm just going to do the hair this time to get that feeling in there. So on this one, we're going to do curly hair, because I want to talk a little bit about, when you see curly hair or wavy hair that has a lot of texture in it or details, it becomes a little more difficult sometimes to kind of get that to, you get very involved in all the individual little curls instead of really simplifying it. So try to think about it as a shape, big shape, and then you'll see when I go in with the color, I'm going to make that look like it has more detail, but it's kind of an optical illusion. We're not going to draw every little curl that we see there. We're going to put in some volume and texture by using very limited values in there. Okay? So I'll get her nose and her mouth put in. Okay. Okay, so now I have three choices that I can use to do different things with. So I'm going to take my sheet of tracing paper and I'm going to put it underneath the marker paper that I have here. So I have a sheet of marker paper. I've tested out some, skin tone colors that I want to put in. And the other thing that I want you to, so I'm putting my tracing paper sketch underneath one layer of marker paper because I want to see how, my sketch looks underneath. It can guide me. And then I'm going to put some skin tone down over that sketch. So I'm going to start with a color that I have here that's kind of a very light color. It's called Buff. And I'm going to come in, and when you hold your marker, what you want to do is not grip it tightly. You want to hold it very loosely, but you're still controlling it. You have more control actually when it is a little bit loose in your hand. You can turn it, and when you have here I have what we call a chisel point marker, so that I can get a thick line if I want, or I can turn it and get a very thin line. Gives you much more flexibility with using that marker. So I'm going to come in here and start to put in color in the left corner of her face. I'm going around her eyes, leaving them white. I'm moving from the left to the right, and then I'm going down right to left. So around her eyes, and I'm moving kind of quickly because marker is wet, and you want to kind of pull it across as if you would with watercolor. Same kind of idea. Go left to right, right to left, and pull it down as you come down. You don't want to outline things and then fill them in. You want to just pull that marker color down, top to bottom, left to right as you come down, because going back in to fix that marker color is pretty much impossible. So we don't want to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to come in and think about some hair color for her. I want it to be a little bit darker. I'm going to use this color called Sand, and I'm going to simplify where the highlights would be and where some of the darker values would be. So here I have bangs that kind of curve around. So in the center of that curving around is where the light would hit it. So I would get some darkness back here, and then that medium color really up front, and I'm leaving the highlight as a very uneven kind of shape there. That's very important. You don't want it to be an even white strip. Back here, as it comes out of the part, this is going to be a little bit darker. So again, both sides it's coming out, pulling some color out of there. So this is going to be my highlighted area. I'm going to leave that white for now, and I'm going to come up against it, pulling the color down. It's not too big a shape, the highlight. And I'm going to get one more highlight as I come down here. And leave a little bit of white there. Okay. Now I think you can already see that the hair is starting to look shiny, and that is our goal. We don't want the hair, for the most part, we don't want it to look, greasy and kind of pasted to the head. So if you want to get it more dimensional, the thing to do is to simplify and to leave some simple highlights in there like that. So already we've got a very simple highlight, again, uneven edges on that. And now I'm going to go back with the same color that I'm using before, and I'm going to go over that to create a little bit darker value as it comes up out of the part, as it comes down here, as it comes up out of the scalp a little bit there and a little bit down here. Create that a little bit darker. Okay, so if you use the same color over itself, particularly when it's still a little wet, it's going to kind of bleed into that color a little bit and be a very soft transition from one value to the next. For outlining here, I'm going to use on this one a brown colored pencil just to outline and define some of these shapes a little more. You can use black or gray. I would not use marker because marker is very defined, and the issue is, you know, if I make a mistake here, I can erase it. I don't have to outline everything. I can kind of here and there touch it, and if I get too much of it, I can always go back in and erase it. So I think it's better, particularly in the beginning, to start out with using a colored pencil. Okay, so I'm going to make this even a little darker here, and in a few places, yes, in a few places, I'm going to pull a few little indications of individual hairs, but you want to be careful with that. Don't go nuts with it. It's hard to kind of, you know, stop yourself sometimes because, you know, you get carried away with it and you're really into it, but be careful with that. So I'm just putting a little bit in there to give that a little more definition and volume kind of feeling, you know. And now I'm going to go into the features of the face and the edge of her, maybe the edge of her bangs a little bit. Okay, and put in the features of her face. Want to get top of her eye there a little bit darker than the bottom lid. And she is kind of deeply set eye there, so I'm going to put a little shadow very lightly in the back there. I am using a brown colored pencil, as I mentioned, and you know, if that was not dark enough, I could always go back in there with some black, with a black colored pencil, and make that a little bit darker. So, you know, there's some flexibility in what you're doing there. And now I'm going to just, I see that her mouth, I put it, the paper under there shifted a little bit, so I'm going to draw that a little bit differently than what the sketch is underneath because that got a little messed up. Okay. Oh, and I want to define her chin just a tad too. Let me do that. Okay. So now I'm going to use a red colored pencil for her lipstick, and I'm going to think about maybe she's going to have a highlight in the center of the top lip, and maybe the bottom is going to have a bigger shadow, less of a highlight, but it kind of goes around circular, in a circular space like that. So you can see that kind of shape. And now I want to take a black colored pencil that's a little bit darker. I feel like her eyes maybe need a little more definition, so I'm going to go back in and do that. Although if you wanted to give her kind of a natural, you know, look, you wouldn't need to necessarily do that. I just felt like I wanted to give her a little more makeup, a little more definition there. And then I'm going to go into the center of her lips and not outline the whole thing, but just, you know, define that a little bit more as well. Now I'm going to pull out the sketch from underneath so you can see what it looks like in reality. So that's pretty much done. Just going to define her eyes a tiny bit more, put in some pupils there, and I think it's pretty much done. We want to put a little cheek color in. Now, cheek color is something that you want to be very soft with, and one little trick to that is you can use a makeup kit like this that has different tones and values that are very close to different skin tones. Like here I can use this pinkish color for some cheek color that's very soft. It's like a pastel, and you can see that very soft kind of look. Another way to do that is to use a colored pencil on the back of your paper, and this is one of the reasons that we use this kind of translucent paper, because you can go on the back of this, and instead of doing it on the front, a little hard to control the edges sometimes, you can put that color on the back, and you can be pretty strong with it on the back, and when you turn it over, you can see how strong I am on the back. That's a little scary, right? But on the front, it's going to have a very, very soft kind of look coming through. I don't know if you can quite see that yet. Okay, so has a very soft look here, and I can even put a little more on the front here if I want to, very lightly. that's pretty much it. So that face would kind of be finished. Now, I'm going to stop right now, and then I'll do another video where we talk about coloring in some different hairstyles and some more versatility with that.